After Joanna rejected me, I agreed to my parents' plan for me to study abroad. The day before I left, I deleted and blocked Joanna's number, and I muted anyone connected to her on my socials. I didn't want to see her again. I didn't want to be reminded of the 7 years I'd spent chasing her for nothing. 2 years later, I came back from overseas, and my old friends insisted on throwing a welcome-back party for me. But halfway through the night, Joanna pushed the door open. She looked at me and bit her lip. Finally decided to come back? It must be so great over there. Who's keeping you so busy? As soon as he heard I was back, my college roommate and best friend, Alex, started rounding up our old classmates to throw me a welcome-back party. In the private room, all my close friends from college had shown up. Leon, I'm not trying to call you out, but you're not the only one who studied abroad. You're the first person I know who just completely ghosted everyone. What, are we not good enough for you anymore? The room went quiet. I just smiled, ignoring Amy's jab. Alex jumped to my defense. If you have something to say, say it. If not, then shut up. Don't make a fool of yourself. Amy looked furious and started chugging her drink. She and Joanna were roommates, so she knew everything about us. Her hostility now, though, seemed to come out of nowhere. All right, let's play a game. How about truth or dare? One of the guys suggested, trying to liven things up. So lame. Then what do you want to play, genius? Let's start with Leon. I sighed internally. I suck at games, so it was no surprise when I lost the first round. I'll take the dare. Kiss one of the girls here for 30 seconds. Alex cringed so hard reading it that he looked like he wanted to bite his own tongue off. I was never subtle about my feelings for Joanna. Even back in high school, when dating was treated like the plague, I pursued her openly. That's too intense, let's pick another one, Alex said, trying to give me an out. No way. The man himself hasn't said anything, so what's it to you? Amy pushed Alex aside and stared at me, a challenge in her eyes. Pick one. Fine, I'll pick. I scanned the girls in the room. A few of them started cheering. Alex leaned in, shooting me a look that said, "Don't take this so seriously. Come on, Leon, pick someone." I was actually trying to choose. They were curious too. They wanted to see what kind of girl I'd kiss after Joanna. Pick one. Yeah, let's see which one of us is good enough for you. The atmosphere was so hyped up that I had no way out. I just had to pick someone and get this stupid charade over with. Just as I raised my hand, the door was thrown open. Joanna walked in, looking like she'd been through a storm. But her face was even colder than the gust of wind that followed her in. I hadn't seen her in 2 years. I was stunned. "Joanna, what are you doing here? Aren't you down south?" Amy asked, surprised. "Business trip." From the moment she entered, her eyes were locked on me. "What were you guys playing? It looks like fun." Joanna was smiling, but the curve of her lips was ice cold. "Oh, nothing, just messing around." Everyone could tell the mood had shifted, and they started changing the subject. She picked up the glass in front of me and filled it to the brim. "I'm late, so I'll take a shot to make up for it." Awkward. That was the glass I'd been using. I tried to signal Alex that I wanted to bolt. He stood in my way, trying to inch us toward the door. "Leon." My name, called out so suddenly, froze me in my tracks. Joanna stared at me and bit her lip. Finally decided to come back? It must be so great over there. Who's keeping you so busy? My first reunion since returning home ended abruptly with Joanna's arrival. Standing on the sidewalk, I could feel the summer heat rolling off the asphalt. A black SUV sped past, and for a flash, I saw Joanna's beautiful, cold profile. The exhaust fumes made the air feel even hotter. Driving with the windows down in this heat so extra. That wasn't Joanna's style. If she was trying to prove to me how well she was doing, there was no need. 2 years ago, she was the one who rejected my confession of love. Whether she was doing well or not had nothing to do with me. "What are you thinking about? Get in, this weather is killing me," Alex complained as he pulled up. I got in the car, and the AC started to clear my head. Joanna showing up like that was a total shock. She skipped every single gathering for the past 2 years. I heard that during the anniversary celebration, the dean of her department called her several times, but she didn't show. Even her startup co-founders came. I have no idea what she was so busy with. But in the end, she was really generous and donated a bunch of new equipment to the school. Alex glanced at me. You don't think she was avoiding you, do you, Leon? Avoiding me? Why would she need to do that? She was the one who rejected me. If anyone should be avoiding someone, it should be me avoiding her. Then what was with that comment she made to you? She sounded like a bitter ex. Don't look at me. I seriously have no idea. I gave up, refusing to think about it. Joanna's bizarre behavior had everyone confused. Alex drove me home to a high-end gated community. Some people are just born on third base. Anyway, drive yourself next time. Don't rub it in my face. I've got to go back to the daily grind tomorrow. Drive safe. He was just complaining. Back in college, he helped himself to my good liquor all the time. Our friendship wouldn't be damaged by stuff like this. But Joanna was different. She thought my family's money was the only reason I could afford to be so proud and reckless. Leon, the world doesn't just bend to your will. You're rich, but if even a single dollar of it was something you earned yourself, I wouldn't look down on you like this. You'll never understand me, and I don't want to be a part of your world. So let's just leave it at that. It's over. If we hadn't run into each other today, I wouldn't have remembered her rejection for a long time. While I was abroad, I'd often wake up from dreams with her words echoing in my head, my pillow damp with silent tears. Scorching out. Are you trying to bake your brain? My sister, Jessica, opened the door and flicked me on the forehead. I shot her a glare and walked inside, rubbing my head. She just shook her head, a bittersweet look on her face. In the past, her little brother would have pounced on her like a leopard cub, refusing to let it go if she teased him like that. Not like now. He seemed more mature and sensible, but he'd lost his spark. Work wasn't too demanding. After my team lead realized I wasn't trying to take his job, his attitude toward me softened. I insisted on taking the subway to and from work, leaving the car Jessica bought me sitting in the underground garage. I moved out of my family's house to be closer to work, promising to come home every weekend and on weekdays when I wasn't busy. My family tried to talk me out of it, but eventually they gave in. Jessica picked out my rental, a small, chic apartment in a nice area close to the office. Joanna once said that the only hardship I'd ever known in my life was the bitterness of my coffee. The company mixer was super awkward. We were all lined up like products on a shelf. I sat in the corner with the other new hires, watching our team lead and the others fool around. Then came the main event. The boss made his entrance, bringing with him a guest, a woman who was graceful, beautiful, and immediately had all the single guys whispering, "Joanna?" I rubbed my eyes. Under the bright lights, her face was even more stunning. It seemed like she saw me too. I'm heading out. If anyone asks, tell them I went to the restroom. I grabbed my bag, ducked low, and slipped out the back. It was only a 10-minute walk back to my apartment. I dragged it out for almost half an hour, even stopping to buy an ice cream bar on the way. I was at the building's front door using the facial scanner. Suddenly, a tall figure appeared on the screen. Startled, I spun around and fell right into a soft but strong embrace. Her lips pressed against mine. She kissed me without mercy, her fiery lips conquering mine before moving down my neck. Her hand slipped under my collar, and her hot, wet tongue traced my skin. I didn't have time to react. The air was thick with the smell of alcohol. "Joanna!" I gasped, my voice weak. She froze, her head still buried in my neck, her breathing ragged. "You're drunk," I said, trying to push her away, but her arms only tightened around my waist. She lifted her head, her eyes fixed on my lips. They still tasted sweet from the ice cream. Her breath was shaky. Her eyes darkened, and she leaned in to kiss me again. "Excuse me." A neighbor from my building was taking their dog out and walked right into the scene. I was mortified and turned to face the corner. Joanna's face was grim as she moved to stand beside me. As the neighbor opened their door to go back inside, I tried to follow them. Joanna grabbed me, her voice cold and sober. Leon, what are you hiding from? Do you feel guilty? Some things can't be erased just because you hide from them. I had no idea what she was talking about. Alex was right. She was acting like some bitter, nagging ex. I live here. Can't I just go home? If you take one more step, I'm calling the cops and reporting you for assault. I scanned my face, got buzzed in, and ran for the elevator without looking back. Life suddenly felt incredibly crowded. Alex added me to our college alumni group chat. Amy invited Joanna to the group too. Alex said all their smaller group chats were blowing up with gossip, betting on whether Joanna and I would get back together. Me, dude, she's the one who rejected me. If I go crawling back now, I'll look pathetic. Alex, from what I remember, she's always been rejecting you. I had nothing to say to that. It was true. Otherwise, I wouldn't have spent my entire youth, from high school through college, chasing her. Alex, I've got a feeling that her giving up a guaranteed spot in grad school to chase money has something to do with you disappearing. Me, that's a paradox. Alex, I bet a month's salary you two get back together. Me, haha. Lucky for you it's not more, or you'd lose your shirt. My confidence was shattered the very next day. My boss told me to help Joanna move. And what a coincidence. She was moving in across the hall from me. We went to the supermarket together to buy her some essentials. Toothpaste, toothbrushes, towels, slippers. I tossed everything into the cart, useful or not. It was on the company's dime after all. Joanna pushed the cart, watching my little shopping spree. How did you end up working at this company? Joanna asked. I sent out my resume, and they made me an offer. I picked up a scented candle and then put it back down. She liked chamomile. Joanna noticed, and a smile spread across her lips. When we passed the loungewear section, all sorts of pajamas and robes were on display. The fitting room mirror reflected our images. We looked just like a young married couple. He stood beside her, watching her carefully select items, while she would occasionally turn back to ask for his opinion. Hi, folks. Have a look at our pajamas. We've got a buy one get one half off deal on matching sets, a sales associate said enthusiastically. Joanna looked at me but didn't say a word. We're not a couple, I blurted out, startled by my own stupid thought. Joanna's face fell. To break the awkward silence, I started rambling. The sign says 25% off for the off-season sale, plus buy one get one half off. It's just a gimmick, I muttered, using the opportunity to slip away. Joanna didn't say a word to me the whole way back. I was happy for the peace and quiet. She carried all the stuff upstairs herself. My boss texted me and said I didn't need to come back to the office, that I could just head home. That night, the group chat exploded. Someone had snapped a picture of Joanna and me shopping at the supermarket. Are they living together? I didn't even bat an eye. Winning these bets against you guys is awesome. Way better than playing the stock market. I gritted my teeth in frustration. The instigator of all this chaos then knocked on my door. She was holding a fruit peeler. How does this thing work? What a waste of money, I said. There are instructions on the package, or you can look it up online. If that doesn't work, just eat it with the peel on. As I was about to close the door, she slipped past me and into my apartment. Jessica had always been willing to spend money, and she decorated my small apartment to look very expensive. It costs money to visit a zoo, you know. If you're just here to admire the decor, please make an appointment in advance. I only host visitors on holidays during the day. And on holidays I had to go home, so I couldn't host anyone at all. Joanna saw the women's slippers by the entryway and smiled. Good safety awareness. How do you know they're not my girlfriend's? Joanna slipped them on and walked inside. Because no one with a girlfriend goes to a company mixer. I followed her, wanting to jump up and smack her on the head. What's for dinner? Her question made me laugh. I'm not your mother. My mom is always asking about you. She wonders why that handsome kid who eats so much doesn't come by the stall anymore. I froze for a second, not expecting her to bring that up. Joanna's mom ran a small food stall near the back gate of our high school. Whenever she had free time, Joanna would help her make skewers. I'd done it too, but I always ate more than I made. Back then, some people made fun of Joanna for it, but she was never ashamed. That was when I first realized she was different. I'll cook. I haven't eaten either, Joanna said, getting up to head to the kitchen. I'll do it. You know how to cook? You used to only make sweet desserts to impress people. Joanna's smile was a little sad. When I was abroad, I couldn't get used to the food, so I taught myself. Joanna looked at me, and I could see the sympathy in her eyes. I made 2 simple dishes and a soup. Dinner was a bit awkward. We didn't talk, we just ate. Joanna volunteered to do the dishes, and I wiped down the table. We had a clear division of labor, and we didn't bother each other. Her job was demanding, and she often had to travel back south. On weekends, I'd go home, and our cook, Maria, would make a huge spread of all my favorite dishes. My phone buzzed with a notification. Joanna had sent me a friend request through the alumni group chat. I stared at the screen, hesitating. Who is it on a weekend? Jessica leaned over my shoulder, trying to peek. I flipped my phone face down. None of your business, I snapped at her. Leon, dear, is work tiring you out? You look like you've lost weight. Why don't you come work at the family company? With your sister there to help you, your father and I would feel much better, my mom said, placing a piece of fish on my plate. My job is fine. I wasn't a doll to be dressed up and moved around. My whole life, no matter what I did, I always ended up following my family's plans. Maybe because everything came so easily, I never had anything I was truly passionate about. The only exception was Joanna. But your father and I... My mom started again. I'm full. I'm going to my room to rest. Leaving home wasn't about not loving them or trying to rebel. I was long past my rebellious phase. I just wanted to do something with my own name, Leon. I flopped onto my big, comfortable bed. My phone buzzed again. Have you eaten? What are you doing? It was Joanna. I must have accidentally accepted her request earlier. Ignoring it would be too obvious, but deleting her would make me look even more guilty. This was so annoying. I furiously punched my pillow to vent my frustration. I'm at my parents' house, I replied. Joanna simply replied with an "oh," and that was it. Just when I thought that was the end of it, another message came through. I'll be back tomorrow night. Now it was my turn to say "oh." That tone, like she was reporting her whereabouts, wasn't for me. What her feelings for me were, I had no idea. It was all a mystery. On Sunday, my sister had a blind date, and I went along as her wingman. The guy was well-mannered and spoke softly. Leon, is that really you? I racked my brain but couldn't place him. I was 2 years behind you in school. My sister was in your year. After graduation, she, Joanna, and a few others went south to start a business. To be honest, I had a huge crush on Joanna for a long time. I glanced awkwardly at Jessica. She just shrugged, as if she didn't care. I even had my sister deliver a love letter for me, but she returned it. Joanna said she had a boyfriend, Simon said with a smile. I used the excuse of going to the restroom to escape the awkward mess. When I came out, Simon was there too. Leon, you've got to step up. I put money on you and Joanna getting together. Such a spoiled brat. In that moment, I kind of understood how Joanna must have felt back then. You're on a date with my sister. Maybe you should focus on that. Simon laughed. It's just a business arrangement. As long as the benefits are there, it's fine. He was putting on a good act. I had to tell Jessica. Simon blocked my path. Leon, at the end of the day, you owe her. When you disappeared after graduation, Joanna looked for you everywhere, like a madwoman. Professor Miller really valued her, and she had the perfect temperament for academia. But instead, she went south with my sister to start a business. You can't even imagine the hardships she went through, and it was all because of you. She rejected me, so why was she looking for me? In our relationship, I had never wronged her in any way. Mind your own business. I don't need you to tell me what to do, I said, sidestepping him. Jessica drove me back to my apartment, and my phone was blowing up with messages. Taking off in an hour. The airport is so boring. Saw a little stuffed animal that looks just like you. It used to be me constantly bothering her. Her replies were few and far between. Now the roles were reversed. Who is that? You've been acting weird since dinner last night. Something's going on, Jessica guessed, a sly look on her face. I ran into Joanna. She shook her head with a resigned smile. She really is a ghost you can't shake. What did you say? I'm telling you to give up. Dad will never approve. Learn from your big sister and find someone from a similar background. It's so much better when you can both do your own thing after you're married. Suddenly, I felt a little sorry for Simon. I looked out the car window as the city lights blurred past, the night growing wilder. Her messages kept coming. I wasn't an idiot. Some things didn't need to be spelled out. Summers meant typhoons. A younger colleague at work had a family emergency, so I covered a business trip for her. I didn't tell Joanna. The flight out was smooth, but just after I landed, the typhoon changed course and made landfall. The convention center was on the outskirts of the city, and in this weather, there was no way to leave. I was bored out of my mind in the hotel. The typhoon knocked out the power on my street. To make things worse, my phone was at less than 30% battery, and I'd forgotten my power bank. I called my family to let them know I was safe and carefully switched my phone to battery saver mode, but it still turned an alarming shade of red around midnight. I started to feel uneasy, wishing for the storm to pass quickly. Faintly, I heard a knock on the door. I wasn't sure. Could have just been a branch hitting the window. The knocking grew louder and more insistent. Over the howling wind, I heard someone shouting my name. Leon. Leon. Without even putting on shoes, I ran to the door and undid the lock. The moment I pulled the door open, I was pulled into a tight, cold embrace. Joanna, what are you doing here? She held me, her voice trembling. Next time you leave, you have to tell me. She was scared. I felt so guilty I couldn't come up with an excuse. All I could do was mumble, okay. The hotel's backup generator finally kicked in. It only powered the lights and the fire safety systems. Joanna was soaked to the bone and hadn't brought anything with her. She was now sitting on the bed, wrapped in a blanket. How did you get here? Felt like the entire city was underwater. In our city, the sky was dark, and the rain was relentless. Planes couldn't fly in this weather. Her lips were pale, and her eyes were filled with pain. I drove. The roads were bad, and a section of the highway was closed, so I had to take the back roads. Don't be so reckless next time. Hearing her say that made me feel a delayed sense of fear. I don't want to be. But if I'm not, you'll disappear again, she said, looking at me. In the dim hotel light, her eyes shimmered. Some things sound cheesy when you say them out loud. But not saying them feels like you're suffocating. Her driving all the way here in a storm was the last straw. My pent-up emotions needed an outlet. What is your deal? I chased you for 7 years. Do you just love the feeling of knowing I'll always be there whenever you turn around? I still remember every word you said back then. Don't tell me you regret it and want to get back together now. I hold grudges. Joanna looked at me, flustered. The wind was still howling outside, making the glass window panes bulge as if they were about to shatter. Quick, the bathroom. Joanna grabbed my hand with one hand and clutched the blanket with the other, pulling us into the bathroom. There were no windows here, so it was safe for now. The power went out again, plunging the bathroom into complete darkness. I was a little scared and reached out, fumbling in the dark. Don't move. I think I touched Joanna's eye. She grabbed my hand and pulled me onto her lap. I shifted awkwardly, but she held my waist firmly. Just for a little while. I'm so tired. She rested her head on my shoulder, seeming so vulnerable. I didn't move. I let her lean on me. After all, she had been driving through a storm all day. Leon, I went to your place today to find you. Your neighbor told me you left with your luggage early this morning. Do you know how I felt? I felt like my world was collapsing. I waited 2 years for you to come back, and I didn't even get to tell you that I like you before you left again. My heart was pounding. My throat ached, like it was being cut with a knife. I was just on a business trip. I heard the sound of steady breathing next to my ear. Joanna had fallen asleep. She told me she liked me, and now my own emotions were a mess, and I couldn't calm down. The power flickered on and off. She was sitting on the toilet, and the blanket had slipped, revealing more than was appropriate. The consequence of staying in one position for so long was that half my body was numb. I couldn't even lift my hand. There was a loud crash outside, and wind seeped in through the cracks in the door. Joanna woke with a start and pulled me tighter. What was that? Right now, I was so grateful that Joanna was here. The floor beneath us was trembling. The window probably got blown out by the wind. She said it so casually, but my eyes widened in shock. I've been through this a few times in the 2 years I was down south. Don't be scared. I'm here. I was terrified. I had to say something. People tend to speak from the heart when they're scared. Why did you give up the guaranteed spot in grad school? Everyone said it was because of me. I needed to make money. I needed money to take care of my mom and to marry you. I've been getting my finances in order for you for a long time. She said it with such certainty. Are you crazy? What if I never came back? It wasn't a what if. I had seriously considered it. Then I would have come to find you. I already have my passport and visa. The lights went out completely. In the darkness, my face was burning. Warm lips pressed against mine. Her breath filled my mouth, and I turned my head away, dodging the kiss. This wasn't the answer I wanted. By the time the wind died down, it was already bright outside. The window in the room was gone. The scene below was even more devastating. The sky in the distance was gray, and the entire street looked like a piece of clothing that had been wrung out in a washing machine. The hotel moved me to a new room. Once the power was restored, my phone didn't stop buzzing with notifications. My family, my boss, my colleagues, I replied to each of them. Alex video called me. The thunderstorm had earned him a day off. How are things over there? I was scared to death watching the news. I'm fine. I got here before the typhoon hit. Last night was pretty scary, though. The window was blown out. He didn't believe me and demanded to see if the window was shoddily made. See? The quality is fine. The typhoon was just too strong. I turned the camera around, and it landed right on Joanna, who was wearing a white bathrobe and lounging on a chaise. Leon. I quickly ended the video call. What are you doing sitting there? I demanded. Now there was no explaining my way out of this. Part of the hotel was damaged, so getting any available room was lucky. Am I so shameful that I can't be seen? She asked, a triumphant look on her face. News about Joanna and me spread like wildfire through the alumni group chat. Alex made a small fortune from the bets and said he'd treat me to a big dinner. I couldn't continue my work, so my boss told me to stay safe and come back when the weather improved. The hotel wasn't far from Joanna's company. Her car was flooded, so she had her company driver pick us up. I went to her office. It was quite large and clearly in a growth phase. Oh, Joanna, thank God you're back. I've been so busy I haven't even had time to eat, her colleague Sarah said, so relieved to see her that she didn't notice me at first. Joanna gave her a little nudge. Whoa, no way, is that really you, Leon? Hi, Sarah. She rolled her eyes, a smile on her face. I'm treating tonight. A bunch of our old classmates work here. We should all get together. They barely got a few words in before they were both dragged away to work. I sat on the sofa in Joanna's office watching her work. It's true what they say. A woman working hard is the most beautiful thing. I got so bored waiting that I fell asleep. In my dream, I was back in my freshman year of college. At the end of the welcome party, we all had to write down our wishes. Joanna wrote, "Make money." Sarah treated us to dinner, and it was all our old classmates. Their hostility toward me was a bit more subtle than Amy's had been. Joanna, you two getting back together this time is a pretty high risk. The assessment shows you're likely to lose your initial investment. So you came back because you got tired of the girls overseas and decided you missed our Joanna after all? We don't accept freeloaders. Joanna squeezed my hand and showed it off. Don't talk nonsense. This time, I'm the one chasing him. And he still hasn't said yes, Joanna said, looking at me with puppy dog eyes. Everyone was stunned. Joanna really had changed. Oh my God. The sickeningly sweet smell of love. You're making all us single people nauseous, Sarah said with an exaggerated expression. She poured a glass of wine and toasted us. Joanna has been through a lot these past 2 years, working like 10 people just to make enough money to marry him. We've all seen it. No hard feelings, we just wish you two the best and a lifetime of happiness. After a few drinks, the atmosphere lightened up. They talked about what had happened over the past 2 years, turning their hardships and struggles into jokes. Listening to them felt like needles pricking my heart. It turned out that while I was abroad, heartbroken and miserable, she hadn't been having an easy time either. Suddenly, all those past rejections didn't matter anymore. The truth was, I had never really hated her. When Jessica showed up, she didn't look happy. She must have found out from Simon. Dad wants you two to come home, she said, sizing up Joanna. Okay. Joanna took my hand again, right in front of Jessica. A look of surprise flashed in Jessica's eyes, and then she smiled. When Joanna went to meet my dad, she brought a suitcase with her. Inside was everything she had earned in the past 2 years. The moment the study door closed, my heart trembled. As long as I could remember, that door was only ever closed when something major was happening in the family. Jessica leaned against the wall, looking at me with a lazy, teasing expression. 2 years ago, right before you graduated, Dad went to see her. I nodded. I had already guessed as much. Her attitude wouldn't have done a complete 180, and she wouldn't have said those things to me unless something had happened. What bothered me was that she never even asked me. She just took a position against me. Back in high school, when you were chasing her all over the place, I went to see her too. I glared at her, shocked that it had started so early. That girl has some sense. What do you mean? I gave her a hard time, but she never fought back. I kicked her in the shin and then again. Jessica winced and dodged, pointing at the closed door to tell me to be quiet. I wasn't being too rough. I just wanted to scare her a little. I didn't expect her to be so resilient. In the end, Dad had to step in. I stared at the study door, my heart twisting. What did Joanna, a soon-to-be graduate with an uncertain future, go through 2 years ago? About an hour later, the study door opened. When Joanna came out, she was smiling. Not bad. You did it in just 2 years, Jessica said, patting Joanna on the shoulder. I remembered her as being arrogant and rarely praising anyone. Joanna looked a little shy. The way she looked at me was sincere and passionate. So they had done all this behind my back. It didn't feel good to be kept in the dark. I turned and walked away with a cold expression. Joanna chased after me. Once we were outside, she grabbed my wrist and pulled me into the car. Why didn't you tell me? I yelled. I'm not a child. Why does everyone else get to make decisions for me without ever asking me? That was what really bothered me. Joanna looked at me, her eyes welling up with tears. Leon, your uncle was right. As a poor student, I couldn't give you a future or the life you deserved. Love and passion would eventually fade, and our 7 years would have become a lifelong nightmare. I wanted what was best for you, and I wanted to push myself to see what I was really made of. Took me 2 years to fulfill my promise. I wanted to see you as soon as possible, to be with you forever. Leon, I'm not made of wood. If I didn't like you, how could there have been those 7 years? She hugged me, her voice muffled and choked with emotion. Almost everyone around me had told me that her choices, her sacrifices, were all for me. Today, all the mysteries were solved. But I felt even more lost. My mind was a mess. I thought about it for a few days, then resigned from my job. My boss smiled knowingly. Congratulations. I'll be waiting for the wedding invitation. I didn't bother to explain. I went home and laid it all out for my parents. I want to go abroad. I have connections and a career path there. I'm still young, and I don't want to rely on anyone for the rest of my life. My mom got emotional and looked at my dad in a panic. Does she know? I'll tell her. If you insist, we'll support you. If I was only 80% sure about my decision when I said it, my dad's approval gave me 100% confidence. When Joanna heard the news, she was silent for a long time. Nothing was set in stone. The prince and princess living happily ever after, that kind of life is the beginning of another story. Go. I support you. Her smile was bittersweet, but she wouldn't try to make me stay. I left the country with a grand send-off. This time was different from when I left right after graduation. All my friends and family came to the airport to see me off. Don't forget that big dinner you owe me. I know. Alex gave me a hug goodbye. He had lost the bet and was already thinking about that dinner. My mom's eyes were red from crying, but my dad was full of pride. Don't worry about us. Take care of yourself over there. Jessica was still worried. Are you sure you don't want me to come over and help you get settled? I can at least find you an apartment. It's all taken care of. Stop worrying about me. Leon, you really have impressed me. Finally, it was Joanna's turn. She stood at the edge of the crowd, constantly on the phone. Our eyes met. She hung up and smiled at me. A warm, gentle smile. The first time we met was also in the fall. She had found a book I'd lost. Aren't you going to say goodbye? It's not like we'll never see each other again. No need to be so dramatic. We just waved goodbye from a distance. 6 months after I went abroad, Joanna opened a branch of her company in my city. That's when I understood what she had said at the airport that day. I just hadn't expected it to happen this way. Work was busy, and I traveled a lot for business. I always let her know when I was leaving. She flew back and forth between countries, bringing food that our moms had cooked. Joanna lost her father when she was very young and was raised by her mom, who sold snacks to make a living. When did you start liking me? The moment you ate that huge handful of fried skewers. I thought, how could there be a boy in this world who's so easy to feed? It wouldn't cost much to raise you. Did you open a branch here to chase after me? Don't be so full of yourself. I did it purely for the money. I pretended to hit her, and she laughed and dodged. It was warm and comfortable. I majored in stage design abroad and worked at a well-known studio. Eventually, one of my designs won a major award. On a magnificent stage under brilliant lights, I held the trophy and gave my acceptance speech, thanking Joanna and my family, who were in the audience. They were beaming with pride. It turned out that more than wanting me to have a secure life, they wanted me to achieve my dreams and shine. Love isn't about compromise and sacrifice. It's about helping each other become the best versions of yourselves. 3 years later, in the middle of summer, Joanna and I returned home and got married. 2 years after that, Joanna gave birth to our son. Having a child at 30, Joanna had our moms worried sick outside the delivery room. My dad, who was usually as steady as a rock, also had tears in his eyes when he saw that Joanna and the baby were safe. When he saw me, he clapped me hard on the shoulder. Jessica later told me that while Joanna was in labor, I was holding her hand, my eyes red and my voice choked with emotion. The moment I saw our son, my legs went weak, my face turned pale, and I almost fainted. On weekends, Joanna and I would take our son to my parents' house. Joanna and my dad would play with our son, who was just learning to walk, in the garden. I was in my room, tidying things up. A photo frame was buried at the bottom of a drawer. It was from when I was 8, when my dad took me to Denmark to see the Little Mermaid statue. I was standing by the sea, smiling brightly. The frame was old, and the clasp was loose. The photo fell out. On the back of the photo was a line of small text in my dad's handwriting. I hope the happiest days of your life are not the ones I gave you. My eyes welled up, and a tear rolled down my cheek. The calligraphy hanging in my dad's study was made up of my sister's name and mine. He had hopes for me, his son, that were just as high as the ones he had for my sister. He hoped I would find a good partner, showcase my talents, and live a brilliant life. Joanna came back in, holding our son, their laughter filling the room. I opened my arms and took my soft, cuddly son, holding him close. Wash hands, drink milk. Mommy hold you? Joanna tried to take our son back. The little guy pretended to reach for her, then snuggled into my arms, babbling, making me want to cover him in kisses. It was a silly game, but the two of them were having the time of their lives. After we cleaned up, our son was tired and fell asleep. Joanna leaned over his little bed, looking at his rosy cheeks with a doting smile. That little girl in our son's toddler class is always smiling at him like a fool. I can tell she's up to no good, Joanna grumbled under her breath. Honey, they're only 1 year and 2 months old, I said, rolling my eyes. People are set in their ways from a young age, she retorted, unconvinced. My son needs to stay away from little girls with impure intentions. Don't worry, son. Mommy will protect you. I rolled my eyes a few more times. What were you and Dad talking about downstairs? I asked, curious. Oh, Dad was passing down his secret guide to vetting future daughters-in-law. I smirked. No wonder Jessica had been complaining since she was a kid that she might not be their biological child. Honey, once things calm down at work, let's take our son on a trip. Joanna wrapped her arms around me, and I rested my head on her shoulder. That sounds nice, but Jessica will be so jealous. My sister's love life wasn't exactly a success story. She was getting up there in age and was still single. These days, finding someone to love isn't easy. Honey, I'm so glad I met you. The best days of my life have all been because of you, she said, kissing my cheek. The sky outside had turned dark. The stars were beginning to appear. I looked at our son sleeping soundly in his little bed, at Joanna snuggled up beside me, and thought of the family that loved me. You are my best days,